The Absent Father Effect on Daughters, Father Desire, Father Wounds by Susan E. Schwartz. Understanding the Absent Father Effect. Susan E. Schwartz's The Absent Father Effect on Daughters, Father Desire, Father Wounds is a profound psychological examination of how a father's physical absence, emotional unavailability, or neglect shapes a daughter's emotional and psychological development. Using a Jungian psychoanalytic framework, Schwartz explores the ways in which an absent father creates an unconscious wound, one that affects a daughter's self-worth, relationships, professional aspirations, and overall sense of identity. Rather than merely focusing on the literal absence of a father, due to death, divorce, or abandonment, Schwartz also considers the emotional absence of fathers who are physically present but disengaged, detached, or overly critical. These experiences leave lasting psychological imprints that influence how women navigate the world, often without fully realizing the connection between their struggles and their paternal relationships. Chapter 1: The Psychological Impact of Father Absence. A father's absence can take many forms, and each has a unique but similarly deep impact on a daughter's psyche. Schwartz categorizes these types of father absence into physical absence, fathers who have died, abandoned the family, or been estranged due to divorce. Emotional absence, fathers who are physically present but emotionally detached, neglectful, or unresponsive. Intermittent presence, fathers who come and go, creating cycles of hope and disappointment. Critical or controlling presence, fathers who undermine their daughter's self-esteem by being overly critical, authoritarian, or dismissive. Regardless of how the absence manifests, the psychological consequences are significant. Schwartz argues that an absent father distorts a daughter's self-perception, making her feel unworthy, unwanted, or invisible. This can lead to chronic self-doubt, difficulty forming trust-based relationships, and a deep-seated fear of rejection. Chapter 2: The Jungian Perspective, the Father Archetype. Drawing from Jungian psychology, Schwartz discusses the role of the father archetype in shaping a person's inner world. The father archetype is associated with guidance, protection, authority, and a sense of structure. When this archetype is undeveloped or distorted due to a father's absence, it leaves gaps in a daughter's psychological foundation. The role of the father archetype: provides structure and discipline. Encourages autonomy and confidence. Acts as a model for self-worth and validation. Helps establish healthy boundaries in relationships. When a father is absent, daughters may develop an incomplete or skewed internal father figure. This can result in struggles with self-regulation, decision-making, and self-validation. Some women may unconsciously seek father substitutes in romantic partners, authority figures, or mentors, often leading to a cycle of disappointment and unmet expectations. Chapter 3: Father Hunger, Seeking Validation in Relationships. One of the core concepts Schwartz introduces is father hunger, a deep, often unconscious craving for paternal love, validation, and approval. This hunger manifests in different ways, such as seeking validation from male figures, e.g., romantic partners, teachers, bosses. Overcompensating through perfectionism and overachievement. Engaging in self-destructive behaviors due to feelings of unworthiness. Fear of abandonment, leading to clinginess or avoidance in relationships. Daughters with unresolved father hunger may be particularly vulnerable to relationships with emotionally unavailable or abusive partners. Subconsciously, they repeat the dynamics of their father-daughter relationship, attempting to fix or earn the love that was absent in childhood. Others may develop a strong fear of intimacy, pushing people away to avoid potential abandonment. Chapter 4: The Effect on Self-Perception and Self-Worth. Schwartz discusses how an absent father can create a fragile sense of self. Many daughters of absent fathers experience low self-esteem, a constant feeling of inadequacy or unworthiness. Fear of failure, a tendency to overachieve to compensate for feelings of inferiority. Identity confusion, difficulty defining personal goals and values. Perfectionism, an internalized belief that one must be perfect to be lovable. These struggles often persist into adulthood, affecting career choices, personal aspirations, and the ability to assert one's needs and desires. Some daughters internalize their father's absence as a reflection of their worth, believing they were not enough to keep him present. Chapter 5: The Role of the Mother and Family Dynamics. While the father's absence is the central focus, Schwartz also considers how the mother's role influences the daughter's development. The mother's response to the father's absence can either mitigate or exacerbate its effects. The overcompensating mother tries to fill both parental roles, which can sometimes lead to enmeshment, codependency, or emotional exhaustion for the daughter. The distant mother withdraws emotionally due to her own struggles, leaving the daughter feeling doubly abandoned. The mother who demonizes men may instill distrust toward men, shaping the daughter's romantic expectations negatively. Schwartz highlights how family dynamics contribute to the internalized narratives daughters develop about themselves and their relationships. Chapter 6: Breaking the Cycle, Healing the Father Wound. Schwartz's book is not just about identifying the damage caused by an absent father, it is also about healing. She outlines several steps for overcoming the unconscious wounds caused by father absence. 1. Recognizing the patterns. Becoming aware of how father absence has shaped self-worth, relationships, and decision-making. 2. Processing grief and loss. Acknowledging the pain of abandonment and unmet childhood needs. Giving oneself permission to grieve the father's absence, whether he was physically gone or emotionally unavailable. 3. Developing self-worth internally. Learning to validate oneself rather than seeking validation externally. Building self-confidence through self-care, therapy, and personal growth. 4. Forming healthy relationships. Recognizing unhealthy relationship patterns and breaking cycles of abandonment. Learning to set boundaries and seek partners who provide emotional security. 5. Integrating the inner father archetype. Using therapy, journaling, and self-reflection to rebuild an internal father figure. Developing a sense of inner authority and self-trust. Reclaiming power and identity. Schwartz concludes by emphasizing that healing from an absent father is a journey, not a destination. While the wounds of father absence run deep, they do not have to define a daughter's future. By gaining awareness, processing grief, and cultivating inner strength, women can break free from unconscious patterns and build a healthier, more fulfilling sense of self. The book is a powerful guide for women seeking to understand and heal from their father wounds, as well as for therapists, counselors, and anyone working in the field of mental health. Through a mix of personal narratives, case studies, and Jungian analysis, Schwartz offers an insightful and compassionate exploration of an issue that affects countless women across generations.